Monica Lindstrom, local attorney in private practice, our guest once again, kind of part of the family.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, welcome to the new set.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it.
It looked like a courtroom before.
Looked a little bit more boring than a courtroom.
Then.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like working in a wallet.
This is fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you liked it, because I'm expecting even bigger things from you now.
Okay.
Because you and I were talking right before we went on about the fact that it is difficult to imagine being Amanda Knox, then or now.
It is a complete nightmare. I could not imagine, I couldn't even fathom what she went through for 4 years, just the horrors that she experienced. It's amazing.
Okay, but how did she get there? You follow this case closely. How is it that a young American college student winds up on trial and then convicted of murder?
You know, it's an amazing case just because of the turn of events. I went back and looked at my notes from November of 2007 when I first heard about this case and started talking about it. And the reason why she ended up getting convicted was basically for 3 things. They found her blood in the bathroom. They found some DNA on the murder weapon, which was a kitchen knife from the apartment that she shared with the victim. And she had very inconsistent statements. At the beginning, she said, "No, I wasn't there, I wasn't there." And then when she's interviewed by the police, eventually she changes her story. "Well, my boyfriend and I were there, but we weren't involved, we were sleeping." So because of the DNA, the blood, and her inconsistent statements, which I think was the nail in the coffin for the first trial, that caused her to be convicted. And then when the appellate court listened to everything again, because they get a whole new trial with the appellate court in Italy, that's when the evidence came out that the DNA and the blood, that wasn't very reliable.
Yeah,
so that's
but
how
neither
it got
were the
turned over.
statements, though.
Right.
What justification does anybody have for doing multiple stories?
Well, the only thing that kind of came out about that was that she was being held in custody. She was being questioned, kind of like that example you always hear where the police have the lights on them and they have the rubber hose and they don't give them
deprivation.
food. Right, exactly. And it seemed like a lot of that was going on, and that could be what led to her inconsistent statements, or it could be she was just confused.
All right, but the prosecutor, bizarre personality that he is, I mean, even the Italians were booing him when Amanda Knox was released and got in the car, and the prosecutor was not far behind, and they were screaming at him.
Right.
And what an unusual personality he is. Even for Italian attorneys.
Absolutely. And the thing about prosecutors, whether you're in America, whether you're in Italy, whether you're in Wales, whether you're in Africa, you should always be going for justice and the truth. It should not become a personal vendetta or something that you sleep with every night thinking about, how am I going to get to this defendant? It should always be about the truth and the facts. And it's possible that this prosecutor has lost sight of that.
But what happens, though, if he does appeal, and apparently that opportunity is his, and knowing how much he loves being in the papers and in media, he probably will. Will that make any difference at all in Amanda Knox's life here in America?
Oh, it absolutely could, because if he ends up appealing it and their top court reverses the appellate court, then they could bring her back to Italy and unfortunately imprison her.
Could the United States government do anything to prevent that from happening?
I'm sure that it could, but it likely won't. See, our government has pacts with different countries about if one of their citizens commit a crime in the United States, what they will do to help us, and vice versa. And a lot of that centers around the type of crime. And when it's a murder, usually the United States will not keep their citizen in the United States if there's clear evidence that they committed a murder somewhere else.
Talk about the 2 different systems, though. I did a commentary this week about if you're going overseas, as my daughter did, you better be prepared for the fact that none of it is American, and maybe most especially the legal systems.
And maybe not have a roommate. That's a little scary.
Yes.
The difference is just a real basic difference, because people are probably confused right now. In America, when we have a trial and there's a conviction and you appeal something, the appellate court is bound by some decisions that the jury and the judge made at the lower level. So if facts were presented at the lower level, only those facts can be presented at the appeal. Nothing new can come in. There's some exceptions, but that's the general rule. Now in Italy, there's a conviction, but when they appeal it, the appellate court basically rehears the whole thing. They can substitute their judgment in for the original fact finders. They can make new findings of fact. New witnesses can come in, and that's very different than the American system. Had this happened to Amanda in the American system, it's likely that it wouldn't have been overturned unless we could show that there was new evidence to date or something that couldn't have been discovered before. So that's the major difference between the two systems.
Isn't it also true that in a lot of foreign cultures and societies that you are guilty until proven innocent?
Well, a lot of people would say that that's true here in the United States also. So I think that's probably a good reasoning there.
Okay, Amanda Knox is here. I think probably everybody, even those people who still have questions, want her to be able to stay here and lead a reasonably calm life. But what about the other trial going on now, the Michael Jackson trial? What in the world is going on? And what does the doctor have to say if all of those other people in the room say he was just simply trying to collect all the evidence and do away with it?
Well, this is when you look at the jury and you ask them to use their common sense. We've got a doctor who was administering a very large dose of a amazing medicine that's usually only used in surgery to a patient. And then when the patient goes into cardiac arrest or even dies, we've got the doctor gathering up all the evidence, putting it in a bag. Evidence meaning the medicine, the empty bottles, all of that kind of stuff. Now the prosecution's going to say, if he didn't think he did anything wrong, why is he gathering up all this stuff and putting it in a bag? Now the defense is going to say, well, it was so he could take it to the hospital and show them what medications he had been administering and what Michael Jackson had been on.
Are you going to buy that if you're in a jury?
Well, what's interesting, though, is the ER doctor has already testified, and she stated that she didn't know, or Dr. Murray didn't tell her all of this stuff or show her all of the stuff that Michael Jackson was on. That's a very bad fact for the defense, and they're going to have to get around it. But he's not on trial for hiding things. He's on trial because he basically did what a reasonable doctor would not have done, and that was give such a large dose of the propofol to Michael Jackson.
And that's you.